We're now going to hear the narrative of Viviane Hayoun Bloodworth. The story takes you from France to Tunisia to Maryland, and you can call it 1 hour, and you'll find out what that means.
Thank you. Good evening. I was born in Paris, but my parents came from Tunisia, North Africa. You may have heard of this country as a spring. What was it called? The Arab Spring. I would call it the Autumn Spring, but anyway. Both of my parents were born in Nabeul. It was a beautiful town, little town, famous for its embroidery, its citrus fruits. Oh, the oranges are red inside. The jasmine and the beautiful, beautiful beaches. It was a simple life, apparently. Jews and Arabs and Maltese and Italians and Greek and Corse and French got along real nicely. My grandfather was you wouldn't call him a judge. During those days, you didn't need a judge. You needed a man like my grandfather. If you were annoyed with your neighbor, or if your wife told you to go sleep on the sofa, it didn't happen during those days, no. Okay, something like that. My grandfather was there, and he knew how to be the mediator. And they went back to their good life again. So that's why I'm this way too. So my father was born from a poor family. He was not educated, but when I saw some of his writing, I couldn't believe it. How could he not be? His handwriting is beautiful. It is elegant. It has, it's magnificent. And I understood why when he immigrated to Paris. That's the next step, okay. So he came from a poor family, and he decided that you cannot be rich in your own country. You got to get away, just like Onassis. So he left and went to France. He became very rich. He had some hotels and restaurants. Now, that's not because he worked so hard, to be honest. It was because he was a gambler. So one day, he would have 3 hotels, and the next, he would tell my mother, let's pack up, we got to go to a hotel. He had lost his hotels. So my mother, though, was always, I remember her, always in love with my father. She talked of him like a god. He couldn't do anything wrong. It was just the love of her life. She was married when she was 16. He was 35. That was common in those days. Well, he went to Paris and became a rich man and came back as a big cat from the big city. He brought a car with him. He was the big guy. And he saw my mother, and that was it. He asked for her hand, and they went to live in Paris. They had 8 children. I'm the last one. I was born in May 1940. The Germans invaded Paris 1 month later, June 1940. He was okay. He never thought that anything would happen. My mother was always worried. She was seeing neighbors left and right disappearing. And he would say, they can't touch us. We've been here for a long time. He never changed his nationality. He was a Tunisian. He named the boys, he changed his name, which was Hayoun, which is a very big name in Tunisia. And a lot of, he changed his name to Hayoun. A little change, right? So instead of Hayoun, it became Bayon. The boys were named Hayoun. But when the girls were born, he knew that they would change names when they got married, so no need to. So I'm Hayoun. So actually, I was Viviane Hayoun di Bayon. I had everything. So that's why I could escape the IRS, the FBI, and everybody. So in any case, for a year and a half, he was all right. He owned, there is a picture there of my father. In his bistro restaurant. He's serving, he's a simple man, but he was a happy man. And you remember I said about him having such a beautiful handwriting. He was a wonderful, I've never met, I mean, I did meet him, but I don't remember anything about him, except what my brother and sister talked about, and my mother. He was fun, he was the big guy, you know, who made people laugh, and an adventurer, a great guy, a friend of everyone. Specifically the friend of the mayor of the arrondissement of where he lived. If you know what it is, you know, Paris is like a snail, and so you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. arrondissement. The mayor of this arrondissement was his friend, and when he would come into the restaurant, my father would say, Gaston, bring the best bottle from the cellar. They would sit down and laugh, but principally, the mayor would show up because he made my father write his speeches. My father was the guy who had no education, but the mind, you know? And my father would write his speeches. That was his good friend. Well, the same friend, he's the one who sold him to the Nazis. 500 old francs were the price of the head of a Jew. That's $1 for you. During those times, 500 was probably a lot. My father was taken to Drancy, which was the outskirts of Paris, a prison. And my mother was asking the 2 gendarmes who came to pick him up, when will he be back? Why? Oh, no, it's just a matter of formalities. He'll be back a day or 2. They knew very well. My mother put a suitcase with a few things in, and some food, of course, she was Jewish, what else? She put some stuff to eat, and a change of underwear, and a nice white shirt. And he was gone to Drancy. A few months later, you may have seen the movie of the, I'm a little bit shaking and I apologize. Sometimes my words when I'm stressed don't come out as easily. Of when they put oh shoot, you know, when they put put them in the big, no, the roundup. You've seen the movie The Roundup? A few months later, my sister, who the eldest one, was 18. I was therefore 1 or 2 years old. My sister came home at lunchtime. She was 18. And was for lunch, you come home over there. And then she was leaving again. And my mother said, wait, come back here. Where you come? Where are you going like that? You don't have your Star of David. And my sister said, I'm putting that thing. If you knew, if my friends knew I am a Jew, they'd never speak to me again. Nobody likes Jews here, Mom. She said, I don't care. Put your star on. But being a young mind, she just got away and went downstairs. My mother went on the balcony and told her, Marcel, come back, come back. And just at that time, she saw the gendarme with a paper, and then she saw the people, you left, you're right, the triage. My sister went to Drancy. They both died. In Auschwitz, they left in the same wagon. Excuse me. My mother waited. She was not able to go see them in Drancy. My 2 brothers were teenagers and would go back and forth because my mother had all the little children there. And, you know, you have no car, the buses, the bomb, the thing. But the 2 young guys, you know, they were able to get there. And my mother would always put some food in a casserole and take it and give it to them to give to my father and my sister. And they would come back, and one day, my brother came back, and there was a, and my father told my brother, tell your mother to realize that the pot, the casserole, is empty. He said, what does that mean, Mom? For you who might not know what it means, there is a custom in the Jewish community, I don't know if it's all over, but of Tunisia anyway. When you give something to your neighbor or something, you never bring it back empty. You put something in it. My father had, of course, realized where the people went after Drancy. D'accord. Thank you. So, in any case, that's not fair. They talk 20 minutes. I'm just as a bad speaker as they are. So, anyway, but my mother didn't know. A lot of people didn't know what was going on at the beginning. So she refused to leave. People would stress on to her to leave, and she wouldn't leave. She would say, I'm waiting for my husband and my daughter to come home. Finally, thanks to the Jewish community, no, there is a, I forgot again the name every time. Anyway, she was able to get false paper, money, etc. And she also had some jewelry that my father had given her. She put 7 layers of coat, of clothing on all of us, and me in her arms. She was able to cross France in 6 months' time to arrive in Marseille. It takes about 1 hour by plane. Why 6 months? Because you were hidden in farms, you were going under bridges while the Nazi was going on top. no need to tell you. I'm sure you've read and heard enough of the Holocaust. Finally, they arrived in Marseille, where my mother was waiting for the boat to rejoin her mother and father in Tunisia, in Abel. The boat arrived finally, but it was not the boat for Tunis. It was a boat going to Algeria, next door. My two brothers, who now became the chiefs, said, we ain't taking the boat. We've had enough. 6 months we've been on the road, and all this problem, we'll wait for the next boat. And my mother had enough. She said, that's it. Any boat that leaves, we're going. Well, they took the boat, or we took the boat, and got to Algeria. 1 hour after the boat left, 1 hour, the Nazi had Marseille, the port was closed. I owe my life to 1 hour, to my mother. Good thinking. In Tunisia, well, they stayed in Algeria for a little while, where my mother was able to raise us by washing clothes for the GIs. My brothers will go over there to the base and bring the clothes, dirty clothes of the GI. My mother would wash. Here she had had the life of a, very lavish life. And finally, they were able to arrive in Tunisia. In Tunisia, there were also problems. They had built camps already. The Nazis were there. They built camps where the Jewish men were ordered to go. First, it was go in the morning, return at night. And then it was for several days. They took them into the desert, and it was not easy. I understand. I have friends whose father died. The conditions were not good. Their guards were some Muslims who were, even at that time, not very friendly with them. And if you were a bad, if they didn't like you, if you did something that was wrong, they will bury you in the sand, and where the ants will eat you all night. And then the next day, you still had to work. So, thank God, the American came, and we were saved. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Viviane. Now you know what 1 hour means. It can mean a lifetime.